thank you all for coming at this particular time. I know it's not necessarily ideal, but thanks a lot. My name is David Clow, and today we're going to talk about actionable messages in Outlook powered by adaptive cards. And let me grab the clicker. And first, let's talk about what an actionable message is. Anybody is already familiar in the room with actionable messages by a show of hand? All right, so great. You guys are probably already familiar with what I'm going to say, but there are plenty of people who don't know. So anybody can just say out loud what they think an actionable message is. Anybody has an idea, wants to share? It's okay if you don't. No? I'm sorry? So that's very true. That's very, very true. However, I'm going to define it slightly differently. An actionable message is how you make the 5 seconds that a user spends on reading their average email count. Like, we all get a ton of email, and most of the time, we spend only a few seconds reading them. That's not me saying it. It's statistics floating around on the web. To be honest, I'm not sure how precise that number is. It might be a little more. I don't think it's less. But the fact is that there's very little time to make an email actually matter. Most of the time, we skim through, we read the subject, and if we don't like it or whatnot, we just skip to the next email. So actionable messages are actually a way to make your emails count. So here is the typical example. Here is the scenario that you'd go through without actionable messages. So you open your Outlook, you select an email, and it so happens to be an expense report. Okay, fair enough, it's something that's probably important. You read what's in the email. In my particular mock here, there's really not much in that email, which is like not cool because I don't really know if it's that important at that point. But let's just say, okay, I'm supposed to do it. So I'm going to look for a link because that's what I'm used to looking for. I'm going to find it. Sometimes it's a little harder to find it, but in this example, it's kind of, okay, so I'm going to click on it. And I'm going to be, sorry, yeah, the animation just played. And so I click on it, and I end up on this external website that will probably ask me to authenticate. And sometimes, even though it's not necessarily going to ask me to authenticate, it might require a two-form factor authentication, and I might get a notification on my phone, and I'm going to have to pull my phone out, and I'm going to have to type in whatever I need to type in. And that really is like already, come on, right? But so I go through it without making any mistakes with my password. That's super frustrating, but happens all the time. I click OK, then I'm presented with that page, which hopefully is as clear as it needs to be, where finally I can see the expense report itself. And then at the bottom, I can click on the approve button or reject, whatever. And up, OK, that's it. The expense report is approved. Now, I don't care about that particular app anymore. I've done what I had to do, so I'm going to go close it. And I'm back with my life in Outlook. But the thing is that my email is still saying that I have a pending expense report that I need to approve, right? I'm gonna say this sucks. It's not great at all. This is not the experience that users should have. Now, let's take a look at what this becomes if you put actionable messages into the picture. All right, so this is the same starting point. You have Outlook. You're going to select a message. But hey, the message already contains the expense report, already has that command field, and it already has the approve or reject buttons. So I just go to the approve button, I click on it, and it's done. One click. And the best is that my email has now refreshed to show that I have approved the expense report, which means that if I go away from that email, and next week I'm not so sure whether or not I approve that thing, I look for that email, I go back there, I will see that I have approved it. I do not necessarily need to go back to the expense approval system in the external website. And I say this makes a big, big, big difference. This is a major improvement in terms of user interaction and user productivity. And so that's basically what it is. Actionable messages are productive emails, right? Big difference from traditional emails, which are completely static. You eliminate the need for the user to have to navigate to an external website. Like, we do that all the time. I'm sure everybody in this room hates it just as much as I do. You allow for effortless task completion. I think everybody would agree, one click to approve an expense report, which is something that you have to do. It's not like you can decide, oh, no, I'm not going to approve expense reports. If it's your job to do it, you have to do it. One click is pretty cool. I mean, Amazon knows that really well. They have that one-click purchase. They know that the one click is super, super important. Oops, did I go too far? No. And actually, I can't read myself here. Yeah, you increase user engagement. So this is something, we have actually data to prove that, and we'll get to that after. With actionable messages, once a user gets used to receiving those things, because you have to kind of disconnect from your normal understanding of what an email is, which is that static thing with links to external websites. Well, once a user gets used to it, their productivity and their engagement increases a lot, right? And to back that up, I'm going to tell you about a few success stories with applications within Microsoft, because we are using actionable messages for plenty of scenarios at Microsoft. The first one is going to be, this is so small, I can't remember. This is SharePoint, right? And all the data that I want to show is on screen after, so my eyes are not good enough, but sorry, I went too far. So we are seeing great engagement with that. Like 75% of all the emails that are seen by the end user. So we still have the problem, given that it's an email, if somebody is going to skim through their email and not spend those 2 or 3 seconds, they might skip it. But most of the emails that are seen are engaged with, which is huge. And they've seen an increase in click-through rate 4 times, like 82%, which is also huge. That means that if you do expose actions in emails, people are probably going to use them. And faster time to act, this is also extremely important. 96 times faster. SharePoint, I'm not even kidding. 96 times faster. What used to take 48 hours now takes an average of 30 minutes because people just do it. And of course, the scenario, which I didn't mention explicitly, is SharePoint access requests, where you want to access a file or folder and you don't have the permission, you request it, and the approver is going to have that actionable message and be able to approve immediately. That has changed things a lot at Microsoft. We'll see a quote after. Our internal expense system is also one of the main experiences that's moved to actionable messages. And there too, there's been tremendous engagement. They are saving money. The estimated money savings that they did last year was $8 million. Just because now that those things are approved faster, well, there are fewer penalty fees, right? And also the time has increased by 8 times. It's not the 96 times that you see in SharePoint, but 8 times is absolutely not negligible. And of course, the return on investment is raised just because of that, right? And that has led Microsoft approvals to actually extend the use of actionable messages across various other solutions for the enterprise, right? Approvals for expense reports are just the start, and they're moving on to additional experiences. And the last is Microsoft Flow. So Microsoft Flow is not necessarily an internal system. Anybody familiar with Microsoft Flow? Pretty much everybody. This is Microsoft's solution for process automation. Like, if something happens in that system, do something in that other system. That do something in that other system is what they call activities, and they have that one type of activity called send an approval message. Well, this has revealed unbelievably popular. It's one of those features that makes a huge difference for them, and one of the reasons why customers choose Flow over competitive solutions, because it ends up sending actionable messages. And the engagement, again, is fantastic at 60%. So this is really, at Microsoft, it has made a big difference to start using actionable messages for our internal processes, and even our customers who use Flow are seeing advantages. And I want to give you a few quotes that are coming directly from important people internally, including some VPs. It's a major behavior shift based on a single feature. Like this, when I read that the first time, I thought, yes, I love to hear that. Because indeed, yes, it's a single feature, as in, well, you just make a message more dynamic and actionable. And just that. It's not about revamping the UI and so on. It's just that makes a huge difference. I got an expense report approval request, and it was magical. That was one of our VPs seeing it for the first time. They had heard about the feature, right? They knew that we were doing it. They had not experienced it for themselves. And they got that, and they immediately sent us an email to tell us it was magical. As in, we just don't know how it happens, but it does, right? That's the definition of magic. And finally, it's a huge efficiency booster. Again, I've already said that myself 5 minutes ago, but they are saying it internally as well. So really, I want to emphasize again, actionable messages beyond the technology that I'm going to present in more detail. It's really something that you need to be aware of because there might be some scenarios internally that would greatly benefit from integrating with that particular tech. Now, how do actionable messages work? So we're going to talk a little bit technical here, but because I think it's important to understand that this whole platform is safe and secure end to end, right? It's not like we're going to let anybody send actionable messages to everybody else, which could be a risk factor and could increase the spam problem that we already have. That's not the way it works. So first step is always for an actionable message provider to register with us to be allowed to send actionable messages. So there's a portal for that where you enter the description of your scenario, potentially screenshots. You tell us which actions you're going to want to run from your actionable message card. Actions are done as HTTP calls. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you tell us all about the scenario, we take a look, we give you the go-ahead, you're now validated and whitelisted in our systems, and you can send actionable messages. One thing that's worth mentioning right now is that as a developer, there's no need to actually register with us. One single account can always send actionable messages to themselves, which makes debugging and getting started extremely easy. Now, the second step is to implement security mechanisms that make it possible for us to prove to ourselves that the message that we received is indeed coming from a whitelisted third party. So we ask you to implement DKIM and SPF, which are industry standard mechanisms for securing email over SMTP. And then here is how it works. So you have your service on the left, which is going to be sending that email with an actionable message card in it, right? So just send the email. We'll see that it's very easy to send the card alongside the email. We're going to proxy, it's going to go through the Office 365 system. That's going to ensure that, I should not have clicked, that's going to ensure through DKIM and SPF that you are indeed who you say you are, and then at that point, let it through. Then the message is going to float and find its way to Outlook and OWA, which are currently the clients that support actionable messages. The user is going to see them. The user is going to take an action, like the approve button that we saw before. And what's going to happen when that approve button is clicked, we're going to make an HTTP call to your service. And that HTTP call is encoded in the card payload that was sent with the message. So essentially, as the sender, you decide how the action needs to be executed, which HTTP call is supposed to be made, the URL, the body, the headers. We're going to proxy that through Office 365. The reason for that is because at that point, we're going to add a signed token to the request that proves that we are who we say we are, that proves that we are Office 365. In addition to that signature, we're going to encode the identity of the Office 365 user that is taking the action so that you know who is doing what. Then we're going to forward that to your service. You're going to validate the signature. You're going to do all the checks that you need to do. And if you conclude that, yes, this is a legitimate request, You're just going to let it go through, actually run the action. This is completely up to you. Your service executes the action whichever way you want using your own APIs and your own systems. We don't need to know anything about that. And when you're done, you return a response that can, it's not a requirement, but it's always better when you do, that can return what we call a refresh card, essentially a new version of the card that was initially in the message to reflect the new state of the object that was acted upon. So that goes back to Office 365, actually, yeah, and back to the client that updates the visuals of the message to represent that, to display that new card that you just sent. That card is then saved to the user's mailbox so that, as I was saying before, if the user navigates to another message and comes back to that one in the future, they will see the latest status and not the original card. So this is how it works in a nutshell. Again, safe and secure end-to-end. Now, actionable messages are built with adaptive cards. Who's heard of adaptive cards in the room so far? Okay, quite a few people. I know this guy has. So let me tell you immediately, there's a session about just adaptive cards later today at 4. I don't know what, I did mention the room in there, presented by a different room. This gentleman here is going to be one of the presenters. I strongly recommend it. It's a nice session. It's going to tell you all you need to know about adaptive cards. We are using adaptive cards in the context of actionable messages. So just to make sure that everybody understands the difference, adaptive cards is it's a format that makes it possible to design the visuals of a card. That is, a rectangle that contains user interface, right? And it can be used in any context that you can imagine, including actionable messages. That's how we decided to let you design your actionable message cards that adorn the messages you sent. So adaptive cards were introduced at Build this year. Actually, the format was officially announced a year before that, but it was still in preview. But at Build, we shipped the version 1.0. So it's a relatively new technology. It's completely open source. Everything is on GitHub. You can even contribute to it if you want. We do not make secret plans or whatever. Everything is completely transparent. And it's a simple yet very flexible and powerful card design format, right? You can design your visuals. And what's fantastic with it is that it will, most of the time, I mean, sometimes you can do something wrong as well, but most of the time it's going to ensure that everything looks great, like those alignments that are so important to make things look good. The consistency in terms of fonts and so on. Adaptive cards is going to take care of a lot of that automatically, so you don't have to do it as an author. So we are using them in Outlook for actionable messages, but that's not the only use case. And again, you will know more about that at the adaptive card session this afternoon, but Teams uses them for bots, with bots. Windows uses adaptive cards in Timeline, and I believe in another experience soon. Cortana Skills also use adaptive cards. So Cortana Skills is how you extend Cortana to implement great scenarios in the Cortana box in Windows or on your phone. And more experiences are coming to the platform as we speak. I cannot necessarily talk about all of them. Yeah, and so maybe you have a question at this point. Okay, so if adaptive cards is a way to define and describe a card, why didn't we just do it with HTML? Because HTML is a great way to do some layout, right? Well, the thing is, HTML is extremely powerful. It's probably too powerful. Actually, it is too powerful. That's the main reason why we didn't choose it. We wanted a format, a technology that would make it simple for an author to do the right things. And HTML is not exactly that. At the same time, HTML, even though it's used extensively in the industry, is not necessarily something that is available on all platforms. We have lots of purely native applications on iOS and Android. For our particular case here in Outlook, the desktop is a native application as well that does not render HTML. So we wanted a format that was separated and not dependent on any particular rendering technology under the covers. I should have clicked my things because I have little boxes here. So native rendering is what we were after. And when I say native rendering, that means using the native graphics framework on each platform, but also rendering things so that they look the part on each and every platform. So when you craft one card and you show it in Teams, or that same card shown in Outlook, it's going to look like Outlook, or it's going to look like Teams, right? It's going to adapt to the host automatically. And finally, it's also purely declarative. If you really want to do stuff with HTML that is not static at all, you have to write JavaScript code, right? And JavaScript code is extremely permissive, and it can also introduce a bunch of security problems. With adaptive cards, everything is done entirely declaratively in one single, simple JSON payload. All right, so this is the reason, the adaptive cards and why we chose them. But so what can an adaptive card do? Like what kind of visuals can you accomplish with an adaptive card? Plenty of things. So this is a mock of a Trello update, for example. Notice that you can organize things into columns, that you can use several font sizes, and so on. So really quite capable. And buttons at the bottom, including one that has that little chevron. If I were to click it, it would actually expand another card inline with additional inputs and additional action buttons. But you don't have to stop there. This is a flight update, a flight card. Actually, this is an emulation of the flight card that we already render in Outlook when you receive an email that contains flight information. We do that automatically right now, and this is what we render. You can do it with adaptive cards. Here is a restaurant, with an image on the right and text, even some star rating. Another flight itinerary this time. Tiny Pulse, which is one of our partners. This is a mock of the polls that they send to Outlook with actionable messages. Now, this is a more complete agenda mail. So this is potentially a reminder that you receive via email in the morning that contains, hey, this is your day, this is what you have to do. This is just a mock, not necessarily a concrete scenario. A weather type can even have those great background images, right? And if we go even more crazy, we can do this kind of card, which is like almost a complete form, right? You have multiple input fields, you have multiple actions, and again, it's all presented in a very, very nice way, and it's all like tight, right? Alignments are perfect, and so on. And most of that is handled automatically by the adaptive card framework. And now, maybe you're thinking that adaptive cards are hard to author because, wow, if I can do all of that, then it must be complicated. So I'm not going to lie and say that it's trivial. I mean, this is a format that you have to learn if you're going to write it by hand. It's JSON. It's not that complicated, but, what if there was a better way? Well, so this is our better way. We have introduced an adaptive card designer at Build a few months ago. Now, this designer has gotten additional features since then. And I believe, Matt will tell me for sure, that we're going to ship it as an official V1 and remove the preview tag very, very soon. And we will see it in action actually right now, I think. Let me see. Yes. So it's super easy to get started, and I'm going to prove it to you right now by doing some live coding in less than 5 minutes. So don't worry, it's not going to be like super complicated coding. And please bear with me if I take more than 5 minutes. It's always scary to do it. I hope that my PC is not sleeping. Yes, it is. So let me log back on. All right, I think we're good. So I'm going to switch to my PC. If it's too small, please let me know. All right, so what I want to do, I'm going to go to the designer here. So this is the designer. Is it too small? Is it okay? Quite honestly, you won't need to really look into exactly how it's done. I just want you to have an idea of how it works. So this is the designer, and I'm going to do a super quick scenario. I'm going to implement a card that is a poll for satisfaction with the Ignite conference. I'm going to send that to an account in Outlook, and we're going to be able to take an action on it, respond to the poll. And I'm going to back that with an Azure function. Why? Because it's super easy. I don't need to create a service. I don't really need to code. So let's do it. So this is the designer as you load it. I'm going to create a new card. I'm going to go here. I'm going to try to do that super quickly. I'm going to take an image and drag it to the surface, right? And I should have planned that before, but I'm going to just go to bing.com, and I'm going to look for Ignite banner. And I think I need to say Microsoft here, because otherwise Ignite is going to return too many things. I'm going to go to Images. I'm going to pick one, like say this one. I don't know if it's the right one. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get its URL. Boom. Copy that. Go back to my designer. Here I have selected the image. I'm going to go to its URL. Paste the URL. Boom. I have a banner. Now I'm going to put some text below. I'm going to say Ignite satisfaction survey. If I do things that are not super nice when I type, I'm so sorry. I'm going to make it bold. I'm going to make it big, right? I'm going to put, actually, that's not what I want. So I'm just going to remove this. And I'm going to bring a choice set here. Oops. I'm going to put it below. And I'm going to go edit its values. So I'm going to say, option 1 is awesome. Right? I'm going to give it the value of 1. The next one is going to be fantastic. And that's going to be 2. And I'm going to add another choice here. And that's going to be outstanding, all right? I'm not giving you much choice, actually. So that's it. So here, I know there is a little bug here, so I hope it's not going to surface. So I've just added an action. It's an action HTTP. I'm going to change. So this is the type of action that you use in Outlook. You make a call to an endpoint, right? So it's called an action HTTP. I'm going to change its title to submit, and this is what's not working. It should refresh here, but it doesn't. And we're going to fix that very soon. So now it's an action HTTP. I want to make a post call to an endpoint, and that endpoint will be, so I need to go to my Azure endpoint here. It's a function that I've already created. So it's very simple in Azure. You create an endpoint, you add a function, you write the code. This is the bare bones code. I have not put any code refresh in there, but it's as simple as that. I'm going to grab its URL, copy that, and paste it into the URL of my thing here. And now what I want is to actually send the value of my input in the body. So the first thing that I need to do is set the ID of my input. I'm going to call it rating, right? I'm going to go back to my action, and in there, I'm going to type rating dot value. Is that? No, that's not the right character. This is the right character. All right, so I have that card now. It's all ready, and I need to send it to an account. So I'm just going to copy the JSON here. And what I'm going to do, because I have to, because unfortunately we didn't have time to make the feature part of that designer before the conference, but we will do it right after, I'm going to go to another tool, which is called the Message Card Playground, which is the tool Outlook uses for development, right? It does exactly the same thing, as in it lets you edit the JSON payload, but it does not make it, it's not a designer. So I'm just going to paste the card in there. As you can see, it's the same. I've already logged onto an account, and I'm going to send that card to an account, right? And hopefully everything's going to be fine, because if it's not, then we have to stop the demo right now. And it's asking me to authenticate, which I didn't think it would, but right, apparently it's been sent. And I'm going to go to Outlook now, and I got that email, and as you can see, it's my card in Outlook, and it shows the thing. But the problem is that I have not done anything yet to make it actionable. So what I need to do is maybe craft a card for what happens once the action has been taken. So I'm going to go back to my designer, and I'm going to remove the input here. Here I'm going to say thank you, right? I'm going to remove the action as well. And that's going to be my refresh card. I'm just going to go here, copy that, go back to my Azure function, and I'm just going to copy that in that place here. See, I have This is where I return the refreshed version of my card. I'm going to save that function. And now, if I go to Outlook and I actually take the survey and I say awesome, and I submit, get a little progress, and it comes back with my card saying thank you. I don't know if I did that under 5 minutes, but I think I did. So this is just to say that it's really not hard to get started and to get something working in the client so you can actually see that what you envision, what you want to do, you can actually do it. And of course, I chose a very trivial, very simple scenario, but you can go much, much farther. Of course, after that, you're going to have to implement the security mechanisms, DKIM and SPF, etc. But by that time, we hope that you're already convinced that doing the implementation is going to have great return on investment. All right. So this is the little demo that I had for coding. And now I'm going to switch to back to the box. I'd like to talk very briefly about some partners that we have. So ever since we introduced the actionable message capability, a bunch of partners have said, oh, wow, that's great. And we have big names here, SAP Fieldglass, Workforce Empowerment. GitHub, everybody knows what that is. Issue management, open source code, etc. Rike, Trello, Asana in the context of task management, simple task management. Nintex and Freshdesk. And we've mentioned TinyPulse a few minutes back, where they do quick polls in the enterprise. And of course, Microsoft Flow and SharePoint, which we also mentioned in our success stories. Well, today I'm also very happy and proud to announce that a bunch of other partners have decided to engage and implement actionable messages scenario, all in the area of workforce empowerment, and Zoho is one of them. Sage is another one, Kronos, and we'll talk about these a little bit more in a few seconds, but we also have ServiceNow also joining us with actionable messages. And so hopefully a lot of you have already heard and know what ServiceNow is all about, but their whole business is around making things easier in the enterprise, automating business processes and making everybody's life a little easier, right? Be it IT, security, customer service, HR, whatever. And today, we are very privileged to actually have Grant Hulbert, who is a senior technical partnership architect at ServiceNow, who is going to come up stage and explain to us what their experience has been implementing an adaptive card scenario. Grant, take it away.
Thank you, David. Am I mic'd? Yes, it sounds like I am. All right. Thank you, David. So it was funny watching this presentation because I've only met David for the first time in person this morning, and you might see that my presentation mirrors his a lot. I assure you, this was not collusion. We're not trying to pull something over on you. The excitement that we got out of Outlook Actionable Messages, I got entirely on my own. So if you see some similarities between our stuff, it's not marketing. We genuinely, as a partner and as a customer, found the exact same things. I also want to point out, you folks are the innovators. The fact that there are not many people in this room is because this is new technology. I assure you, next year, this room will be overflowing because this is game-changing software. And it's amazing because you think, email, we solved email 30 years ago. This stuff really makes a difference. And at first it sounds boring, but it's insane how good this is. So I'm here to talk to you about, let's see. Pardon? Oh, have I not switched the input? Oh, wow. Okay. I saw my own stuff here, and I was not on it. So, okay. I apologize. All right. So I'm here to talk to you about the great, the bad, and mostly good. So just real-world experience implementing this. So first of all, why is it that we invested in Outlook Actionable Messages in the first place? I'll move on to two scenarios that are very important to our customers. I'll give you a live demo with real email showing this stuff actually functioning. And then I'll give you an idea of what the technical work was required to do this. I'm not going to be showing any code, so hopefully there are people here who are going to go back home and to their work and tell their engineers to please implement this. So I'm not diving into code. I'm just going to describe to you, quite frankly, how easy this was to implement. So first off, why did we invest in this? Well, the first reason is because David's team, all of the Outlook, the O365 team came to us and they told us, Grant, the best bang for your buck, the best return on investment that you could have working across all of the Microsoft portfolio within O365 would be to look into this cool new thing called Outlook Actionable Messages. And so I thought, well, these seem like trustable people, so we'll go ahead and follow up on that. The second reason is that all of us live in Outlook. We live there. But the problem is that when you get an email, all it's really doing is creating more work for you. You're not actually accomplishing work in email. And so when we saw this, we realized, oh wow, because ServiceNow is all about streamlining your work and your workflow, wouldn't it be great if you could actually get work done inside of the email? And I saw David mention that as well, and it's absolutely true. Then we have the notion that turnaround time is important, obviously. And again, David quoted some statistics. I've heard a statistic that said that when this was implemented in the field, the approvals were happening so quickly that a manager, a VP, actually called one of his managers and said, is there something broken? Why are these approvals suddenly happening so quickly? Is there something broken? Are you just not reading the emails? And the manager said, no, it's just so much easier to push that little button. They were astounded at how good this was. Now, by the way, the other thing about turnaround time, why is it that it's so slow for us to respond to these emails? Number one, what am I clicking? You got this link in the email, and you're not quite sure if it's a phishing scam. Or worse yet, it's your IT department who sent out one of those fake emails where they're trying to fool you into clicking the thing, and then they get on your case. So you're just kind of afraid to click these emails. Then now you're thinking, oh man, I clicked it. What was my password? And again, David nicely demonstrated that. How do I do this thing? And then 2 minutes later, you're finally logged in and you're staring at this web page and you're like, why was I here again? And then again, as David mentioned, 2 days later, you come back and you look at this email and you think, why did I actually do this already? Did I click this? Did I approve this? All of those things are true. And then finally, security. Spoofable emails. So how many of you have a system where all your manager has to do is send the word approve in the subject line of the email into an automated system, and that's what actually causes the approval system to function? Has anybody thought of that and thought, we got any security-minded people in the room who are nervous about spoofing? The first time I saw this at my company, I thought, I could just pretend to be my manager and approve anything I want by sending the word approve in an email. So we're really excited about the fact that behind the scenes, this is the encryption, the tokenized patterns, all of the security that's baked into this makes this completely and utterly secure. Okay, so scenario number one, approvals. What kind of email would you rather get? How many of you gotten emails that look like this? This is what my company ships out of the box. I'm not proud of it, but that's, frankly, 10 years ago when our company first started doing this, this was a breakthrough, the fact that an automated system could ask for an approval. But it looks terrible. You're not really sure what you're clicking. And frankly, there's a lot of swivel chair. You click a link, and then you got to do all this work to go log into that link. So now they look gorgeous. That's just a side effect, frankly, because I'm sure some of you in the room are thinking, I could make an email look like that with HTML. That's not really all that game-changing. So, but the key thing here, it's a beautiful layout, so it's pleasant to look at. That's fine. All of the information that you need is right there in an easily consumable form, but the kicker is that approve button that really does actual work when you click it. That is what puts this way over the top. So let's look at a second scenario, surveys. How many of you have gotten an email that has a survey link in it and not clicked the link? I'm not seeing it. All right, I see a hand. Okay, cool. I'm going to put both my hands up. First of all, again, could be a phishing scam. Second of all, I have no idea how long that survey is going to take. What's it going to be? 20 minutes? Half an hour? I don't know. For those of you whose job is to send out these surveys and hope that you get a 1% response rate, really are going to like this. Because again, well, I think I just talked through all of these things. It's a questionable link, and no matter what, you have to swivel chair over and go log into some other system to take the survey. So I would rather get something where there's no surprise. I see the whole survey right in the email. I know how much effort it's going to take. It's got a native, beautiful UI. And then finally, again, that action button actually completes the work. And then the survey shrinks down and says you've already taken the survey. Because how many of you have gone back and looked at yesterday's email and said, I wonder if I actually took this survey. Oh, well, I'll click the link and try it again. All that stuff just disappears. So let's hope the demo gods are kind to me. First of all, there's a long pause there. Okay, cool. All right. If there are ServiceNow users in the room, that's great. But if not, let's just assume that you have some kind of a system where as an employee, you as an employee are going to request something like, say, a laptop from your boss. ServiceNow, that's one of its many features, is the ability to have kind of a service catalog where I, as an employee, can go request to purchase this laptop. So I'll go order it. And there we go. Now, within ServiceNow, anybody who's used ServiceNow before, it's not the fault of ServiceNow, it's the fault of your boss, that it takes him forever to approve this thing. But basically, everybody knows that frustration when you're ordering your new device. Now there's just this long pause while you're waiting for your boss to do something. So this particular screen is showing the sequence of approvals that have to happen. So everybody's twiddling their fingers, waiting around for this to happen. Well, this is what your manager's experience is. Your manager is now seeing, let me just refresh this. For some reason, Safari is a little bit fussy about the graphics in these. There we go. Okay. This is live. This just happened. So ServiceNow just sent this approval request out to my manager. And my manager looks at this and says, sure, I'd love to give Grant this new Surface Book. So he clicks the approve button. Now watch closely. Approving, it just talked behind the scenes. It did all of that secure communication that David was mentioning. The whole back and forth with the encrypted tokens and all that stuff went back and forth between the two systems. And now what my manager sees is that he's already approved this. And this is because this is all live with webhooks and all, I can refresh on the ServiceNow side. And see that step of the approval has moved forward. So, demo gods were good to me. So this was an actual live communication between the two systems. We're shipping this in the next version of ServiceNow. And let's see what I've got next on my agenda. There we go. Okay. So now, all right. So, was that pretty cool? Do you think it would actually help? Okay. Begging for. By the way, I'm trying to do this thing. I read a thing about from Toastmasters. Some woman won some huge award on Toastmasters, and the way she won it was because she had her hands, her palms outward, because it's apparently some kind of open gesture. I got to tell you, it is really awkward trying to stand like this. But hopefully you're all engaging with me more. Okay, so let's talk about the technical work required. And the spoiler for this, not much. That's the other cool thing that I love about this. In fact, when David showed you the actionable message designer with being able to just drag and drop stuff, my team didn't have that opportunity. We got in early on this thing. And so we were coding by hand. And even hand coding with JSON was way faster than we expected on a development effort like this. It was really a matter of days, potentially weeks. This is not something that takes months. This stuff is just really cool and really simple. So, one of the things we really like about it is the omni-channel experience. And by that means that write once, deploy anywhere. You design an actionable card, it can go out to Teams. It can go out to Outlook. It can go out to multiple different endpoints. We really like this. And the fact that it's an open standard. So maybe you could go bug some of your other providers who aren't Microsoft and ask them to start using adaptive cards. I know I did. A certain social network, I went and talked to their engineers and said, please use adaptive cards. All right. But make sure that you're, at least today, right at this moment in time, make sure you're testing in all of your environments. Unfortunately, Microsoft Outlook on Mac, it's Outlook 2016, can't render these things. Almost everybody in my company uses Mac Outlook 2016, so it was a little hard for me to kind of demonstrate this and drum up some excitement inside the company. They're fixing that. They have a roadmap for that. I don't think iOS is quite ready yet either. So, you're getting in at the early stages. You got plenty of time to go back, develop this, add this to your products, and then it'll be ready fairly soon. I noticed, and again, this is stuff that, these are small quibbles, but I noticed that there's just a few data types that were a little hard for us to render. So in our surveys, for instance, we've got some kind of special radio button data types, or we've got some date time controls. There's just a handful of these things. Microsoft is constantly updating them, and they're constantly keeping their adaptivecards.io website up to date with the new stuff. But, those were just some of the things to take back to your engineers and let them know that we're not quite there yet, but it's moving along. ServiceNow has a very sophisticated and complex data type called a reference choice list that requires lots of back and forth with the server. And works great in JavaScript in a browser with Ajax and all of that. But currently that's a little bit too complex to implement easily inside of adaptive cards. We might have a workaround, but it was a little tough. This is a pretty minor one, but I just don't like radio buttons for true false. I'd rather have a little checkbox. So hopefully they'll have a checkbox soon. This one's tough. So troubleshooting is a little bit hard. And the reason for that is it's a double-edged sword because security is so important and so baked into this product that Microsoft is making sure that if you shouldn't get the card, you shouldn't get the card. Or if you haven't been whitelisted, you shouldn't get the card. So it was a little hard. I would keep getting emails, and they didn't have the Outlook actionable message in them. And I couldn't really quite figure out how to troubleshoot that. And so I talked to their engineers, and they said that they're working on ways on making that easier. But just a heads up for your engineers. I got a tip for you. Use that JavaScript renderer. Use all of those websites. What's it called? The message card playground. Use all of those things. Don't be typing JSON in your own editors. Just use the cool websites that they've provided. And I learned something just now. I had no idea some of these websites that David was showing. I was doing it the hard way before. So make sure you just leverage all of the sort of the open source and the playgrounds that Microsoft's providing. This apparently is old news. This was one of my complaints, again, because I was an early adopter. I didn't have that cool visual drag and drop designer. Apparently we can strike this one out. So as of today, you guys get that. But that was a little struggle for me recently. This one's big. So this one's really big. You know the dynamic updates where the card refreshes after you click the button? It took a little effort because these asynchronous HTTP calls are kind of tough. The documentation wasn't quite there yet. And so it was challenging to build these refreshes. However, that said, it is so worth it. It is such a different experience. The difference between clicking an approve button and having the email just sit there and stay the same, or clicking an approve button and having the email shrink and say, you've already approved this. That drastically changes your end user's experience. And so even if it's a little bit tough, please, please, please do it. Specifically, your engineers might already have an endpoint that accepts this function call, so that you click the button that says approve the report, and they might already have an endpoint that does that approves the report. But they're going to have to add a little bit, because today your endpoint, your REST API endpoint, probably doesn't send back some cool JSON that re-renders and refreshes the card. So there's just a little bit of a tweak they have to add, maybe fork an endpoint or something like that. But again, terribly, terribly worth it. And then the docs for the dynamic endpoint. Our engineers, myself included, had a little bit of trouble understanding them at first. Once we completely understood the whole turnaround mechanism and what we were really trying to do, it made sense. But again, I'm just pointing out, you can tell just kind of minor quibbles. There's really not much. The bang for the buck, the ROI on this was absolutely extraordinary, and we're very grateful to Microsoft for letting us in on this. So I don't have time. I will answer questions after David finishes. If you have deeper questions, you want to talk to me or my team, please come to booth 1931, and there will be a little bit of Q&A right after David finishes. So that's my part. Thank you very much for listening.
I would have shaken your hand, but they're full. Thank you very much, man. All right, so we're going to go back to, what is it? This one. I'll wake this up at the same time. All right, thanks a lot, Grant. This was hopefully very enlightening as to what a concrete experience from an actual partner implementing the solution is all about. Thanks also a lot for engaging with us and helping us, iron out some of the things that are not yet perfect, including our documentation. You can see that we're moving on with the designer now that was not available just not too long ago. So thanks a lot, Grant and ServiceNow. And will my PC actually turn back on? Yes. All right, so back to the deck. Right before this ServiceNow presentation, we talked about other partners who have joined us. So we talked about Zoho. Zoho implements expense report approvals in actionable messages. We also have Kronos coming to us with vacation request approvals, and those are just starting points for them. And even Sage with timesheet approvals. And I'm going to go ahead and actually demonstrate. I'm going to start with Kronos, and depending on the time that we have, we might even be able to demo Zoho. So let me switch back to my PC, which is number 7. Is that it? Yes. All right. So the reason why I wanted to demonstrate Kronos first is because I need to pick the right account. I think that's Henry, so that's fine. Kronos is actually using the Outlook extensibility platform completely. They are using not only actionable messages, but they're also using add-ins. This way they can provide an experience that is entirely in Outlook from start to finish. So here I have the Kronos add-in installed, and I'm just going to go launch it and say submit time off. So this is an add-in, and there was a session earlier this week talking about add-ins, and I think I have a mention of the session number in the deck a little later if you want to watch the replay. And what I'm going to do is apply for time off, click that button here. Again, entirely in Outlook, and this is all based on web technology, so it's essentially like a little app that's embedded into the task pane in Outlook. I'm going to apply for that, and I'm going to say submit. Can I just do that right now? So very easily, right from the client, I'm able to submit a vacation request. And as you probably got it, this ends up as an actionable message in the mailbox of the person who needs to approve it. And that would be actually probably, is it, which one is it? Or did I not receive it? Oh, there it is. All right, so Henry Jamieson requested a vacation, and Doris Maynard just received it. So I'm going to hit that message. Yeah, we do apparently have a problem with images here. I'm just going to refresh quickly to make sure that those images are showing properly. Select that message, because it looks a lot better with the images. Sorry, refreshing, network. All right, so there we go. Henry Jameson is requesting vacation, and there are multiple actions here, including this one that makes it possible to approve with a comment or to reject with a comment. I'm just going to go ahead and click approve, and now it shouldn't be news to you anymore. This is an actionable message. I click a button, and it actually happens, and my vacation approval, the vacation vacation request is now approved. Which I could easily confirm by going back to a Doris mailbox. Yeah, this one. Actually, that's not the one. Sorry, having to juggle with all those, I was going to say review time off. I believe here it should just say that the time off that I just submitted is now accepted. So really an end-to-end scenario in Outlook. You start there. You end up with an actionable message in another mailbox, take a quick action, and then you can go back to that same add-in right within Outlook to see the status. Hopefully, yeah, there it is. That would be the last one, I believe. That was just approved. So that's Chronos and their scenario. And how much time do we have? I'm going to skip on the other demos, and I'm actually going to switch back to the deck right there. We should give you yet another quick view of what the card looks like for those other scenarios. And you might think, well, yeah, those look like mobile screenshots. So let's just go back to what comes next for actionable messages. The first thing is that actionable messages being done with adaptive cards, we're going to follow the evolution of adaptive cards, and we're going to offer the new capabilities that get added to adaptive cards as they are added. So that means V1.1, which is hopefully coming very soon, and the ability, for example, to do media playback right from within a card. So you can imagine a small video player or even a small audio player, and other capabilities as well. Next, as Grant said, we do not yet have support for actionable messages on the Mac, but that is coming. The team is hard at work, and it's I don't want to give any time frame here, but it should happen sooner than later. And then, of course, actionable messages on mobile. So this is by far the #1 requested feature for actionable messages. We personally believe that once that feature is on mobile devices, it's really going to be a game changer. It's going to make so many people use their phone for their life and email on a daily basis. This is hopefully going to be major, right? It is taking a little longer. We have talked about it in the past, and it's taking a little longer than we had expected or hoped for, because the mobile implementations of Outlook on iOS and Android are subject to a major refresh of the data access layer, which will enable plenty of great features to come in the near future, including beyond actionable messages, S-MIME, and a bunch of other things. So it's taking longer, but we think it's going to be worth it, and it is coming in the first half of 2019. And because I'm tired of actually mentioning it without ever being able to show it, today I will actually show it. And I just need to go to that one, which is that iPhone here, which will hopefully show on the screen very soon. Unfortunately, it's squished. We've tried to make it not squished, but we failed miserably. I think the cable has a little problem. All right, so let's do it that way. All right, so I have Outlook here, which is configured with basically the same accounts that I've been using for this presentation. And so, actually, maybe not this one. Actually, yes, this one. This is the ServiceNow request that we've seen before, right? So this is what it looks like on mobile. And I can go ahead and hit the approve button. As you can see, you have the little progress that appears right there. And hopefully, so I didn't see the end result. It's the demo effect, obviously, right? So the card should have refreshed, and it did right before. So that's why we're not yet ready to ship. But this is not, actually, there's more. There seems to be more than, this is the card that I did before. Anyway, so this is on iOS. Let's show yet another example, maybe this one. This is actually Zoho expense report approval. Prepared this before. These guys have gone very far because there are some additional actions that can be taken, even a collapsible area here to show or hide the history, or even show more details. I do not know if you see my finger showing on the screen. I'm sorry if that's not the case. And of course, here again, I can just hit the approve button, and hopefully, so this time around, it actually did work. You can see that it's now approved. So this is actionable messages on mobile. This is real code. This is shipping in the first half of 2019. Because the refactor that's going on mobile is happening at the same time, and we will not be able to ship this until, oh my, this is horrible. I realize that what's on, oh, it's because I turned the screen. It might be that we end up shipping iOS and Android at exactly the same time, but it might also be that we ship the iOS version of actionable messages a little before the Android version. However, the two are being worked on at the same time alongside the Mac implementation. Back to the deck for the last bit. So that's what's coming. Now, it's those two sessions if you want to learn more about Outlook Mobile and all the cool features that are available in those great email clients. Those two sessions might be interesting to you. I think at least one of them has already occurred, but you can watch the replay online. And I just went through this, so that's fine. And call to action. So I really want to, once again, if you have sensitive and time-sensitive internal business processes, or if you're an ISV and you have solutions that rely on email notifications, if you want better engagements with those notifications, and if you want to delight your users and make them more productive, and if you want to save money in the process like our internal MS approval systems did, consider investing in actionable messages. We are talking about easy implementation. I think Grant kind of confirmed that before. This is not something that's going to take months. We're talking weeks. We're talking about low cost. Again, you don't need 15 resources to implement those things. And the return on investment is high, and the impact on end users is also very high. And with that, here are a bunch of resources. If you want to get started, I will give you a little time to take pictures. But aside from that, this is it for me today. Grant, thanks again for the ServiceNow presentation. And we will take a few questions. I think we still have a few minutes. Thank you very much. And of course, I forgot to say, please do fill evaluations. Yeah, it's very important for us all. Thank you very much. So any questions, please come to the microphones. Yeah.
How about integration within other mail apps like Gmail and stuff like that?
Great question. So one thing that I didn't mention is that those actionable, when you send an actionable message, you're still sending an email, so it still has an HTML body. And that HTML body will display normally in any client that does not support actionable messages. Now, as to whether other clients want to actually support the technology, I would say it's completely up to them, right? I don't think we would prevent them from doing it. I don't think we would necessarily either go to one of the other major providers and tell them, hey, please do it, because we do believe that this is a clear advantage for Office 365 users. But if other providers want to implement the technology, they can do it.
Good afternoon. Thank you. It's a great presentation.
Thank you.
If I have an adaptive card that I send someone in an email, but I also want that adaptive card to be in a Teams site, so say I'm taking a quiz or a survey, will the adaptive card shift for the user once they've completed it to say they've already completed it? Or can they reopen the email as many times as they want, or find as many touch points to complete it as many times as they want?
Great question. So currently, no, that's not the case. The card will not refresh everywhere. It will only refresh in the place where the action is being taken. And the reason for that is because the response to the action request is what contains the refresh card, and we save that in the user's mailbox. So I could imagine that the other client, like Teams or whatnot, could actually be pulling the data from the user's mailbox, but currently, that's not how it works. But something that we can consider for the future, for sure. Sir?
Well, thank you so much for that great presentation. My question is about compliance. What happens to the original message? So if I'm doing e-discovery search or something in case of a dispute, will we be able to get the original message that contains the actionable the actionable message, the original one?
So I am not 100% sure. I believe we saved the whole history of cards that have been stamped on the message. We replace, as in the latest is that one, but I believe we saved the whole history, right? So that technically you have access to it.
You save in the mailbox?
In the mailbox.
Yeah.
Everything is associated with the email item and stored in extended properties. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Question. Can you use actionable messages on a shared inbox?
On a shared inbox, that's a great question. I think it should just work. So no, here's one problem. The problem is the authentication. Correct. And we're going to remediate that. But currently, if it's a shared mailbox, essentially multiple people can actually see the same actionable message. And the problem is who's taking the action, or on behalf of who, right? So to solve that, what we believe is the right solution is to have the user who's taking the action authenticate just in time, right? This is not available just yet. I think so. It would probably just work. However, it would probably not just work the way you want it to work.
You mean it wouldn't contain the context of the user that's actually
I think Raju here has
Sorry,
go ahead.
just to add to that, it's available in groups as well as shared mailboxes. So when you act on an actionable message as an individual, you would, like David was pointing out, that you would receive like a certain set of information, like you would get the user email address of the person who acted, but in case of a shared mailbox or a group, you would get the user's object ID. So for privacy reasons, like we don't directly reveal the user's email address, you'll get the object ID, and if you already have like you're a registered Graph API app, you can like simply query and look up like who's the right person who's acting.
Yeah, for groups though, there's a caveat. So groups do not support actionable messages sent over email. Groups support connectors, which also use the actionable message technology, but the connectors has to be set up by the user beforehand. So it's not a free solution, if you wish. You just don't get the experience unless you have configured something. Actionable messages, which I believe is what most people would be interested in, something that just happens. There's no configuration, no installation required.
Can I nest actionable cards? So a short card that just says learn more, when you click learn more, that refreshes to give you more options that you can actually sign up and register for things.
Yeah, so you can build, there are adaptive cards have plenty of capabilities, and it so happens that Outlook already implements a set of capabilities that are not yet available in the core format, but will be in the future. One of these things is the ability to show or hide an area of the card as a result of the user pressing a button or something like that. So you can actually craft your card so that it has multiple areas that the user can expand and collapse. Does that answer your question? Yes. Anybody else? Yes?
We're basically right now exploring using Microsoft Flow approvals. The problem we're running into is that we can't find a version of Outlook 2016 even for Windows that will actually render them as actionable cards. In other words, the approve and reject buttons are just hyperlinks to the Flow Approval Center.
So with Outlook on the desktop, things are potentially complicated because it entirely depends on which channel you're on. If you're an Office insider, you will always get the latest bits every month, basically. And this way, you pretty much guaranteed that you're going to have all the latest features, including actionable messages. But lots of big clients, big customers, are on what's called the deferred channel. Actually, now it's called the semi-annual channel. And the semi-annual channel only gets updates every 6 months, right? And sometimes those updates are not actually installed immediately. They run some tests and so on, and within the next 2 months, maybe they're going to start the deployment. So that makes it a lot more complicated to have the feature available on a timely basis in Outlook Desktop. But it's kind of a conundrum. On one hand, we have to offer that semi-annual channel, and on the other hand, people want the latest features as soon as possible. So there are ways around that problem where even the people on the semi-annual channel could potentially use an insider build, but that's probably the culprit.
If we are on an insider build and we're still having the issue, do we talk to, basically, I went to the Outlook people and they told me to come to this, and I'm not sure I'm going to the right person to find.
So we are the right people to solve that problem. So you can talk to us after, right? If you're not seeing actionable messages and you're on the insider preview, there's a problem. Another question? No? All right. Oh, actually, sorry.
Yeah, can the refresh card actually be another actionable message?
It can be anything you want. You are not limited to static content. You can add actions, have fewer actions, new images, new whatever, anything you want. You can implement a multi-step experience like a survey where you would have one question per card, essentially, and the user could click next, next, next. Like you have all of that freedom.
Okay. Then another question. Why do we have to register with Microsoft? Isn't it kind of organization's decision to allow the actionable messages?
So you have to register with Microsoft for general providers. And that is, the reason for that is that because actionable messages are an Office 365 feature, and Microsoft is essentially putting its stamp of approval on the scenario. So that means that if something goes wrong, a customer of yours could come to Microsoft, and I don't want to say sue us, but blame us for a scenario being. So we're really vouching for you, right? And every action goes through Office 365 so that we can sign the request and make sure that, so that you can make sure that it's not a spoof call or whatnot. Now, in the enterprise, there is a way to register for scenarios just for your enterprise. There's a separate portal for that. That makes things a lot easier, and approvals are done within 2 hours. Well, depending, obviously, on whether or not the approver approves. Another question? No? Okay, have a good rest of the conference. Thank you very much for coming by, and Grant again.